Picture a winter morning when the cold had already arrived before you opened your eyes. You could see your breath in the bedroom, pale clouds drifting in the dim light, while frost drew delicate feathers across the window pane. Downstairs, the wireless murmured the day's news, calm voices reporting temperatures that sounded almost unreal. Outside, streets lay hushed, cars dusted white, footsteps crunching in the stillness. It felt as though Britain itself was holding its breath. This wasn't a single bad winter. It was the start of a decade when cold shaped everything, and ordinary mornings quietly became unforgettable for everyone. To understand why those winters felt so unforgiving, we have to remember how Britain lived back then. Many homes were built for endurance, not comfort, with thin walls, drafty doors, and single panes of glass that offered little defense against the cold. Warmth was something you gathered in one room, not something that followed you through the house. Mornings began with layered clothing, brisk movement, and routines shaped around keeping warm rather than feeling cozy. Central heating was rare, and insulation was more hope than reality. You learned to live with cold floors, chilly hallways, and bedrooms that felt closer to the outdoors than indoors. Yet, this wasn't seen as hardship. It was simply how winter worked. Today, we expect steady warmth at the turn of a dial, barely noticing the season outside. Back then, winter announced itself loudly, demanding planning, patience, and resilience. That difference is why the cold felt sharper, longer, and more powerful, leaving memories that still linger decades later. It shaped childhood memories, household habits, and the way neighbors quietly looked out for one another, turning ordinary weather into a shared national experience that bonded communities, long before comfort became an expectation for everyone everywhere then. Step inside a British home during those winters, and the cold followed you everywhere. Bedrooms were the hardest, where you woke to chilly air and the faint creak of floorboards as someone padded along the landing. Getting dressed was done quickly, breath puffing as jumpers were pulled on in haste. Kitchens, by contrast, became islands of warmth and life. Kettles, steamed cups, were wrapped in both hands, and conversations happened close together, voices low in the early light. Evenings revolved around preparation. Extra blankets were layered with care, hot bottles tucked in, curtains drawn tight against the dark. Families adapted without complaint, finding comfort in routines rather than temperature. Today, we wander freely through evenly warmed rooms, barely thinking about it. Back then, warmth had a place, a time, and a rhythm. And those small domestic rituals quietly shaped how winter was endured. One room at a time, setting the scene for streets and towns outside that felt just as transformed by shared endurance and familiar, comforting nightly habits everywhere. Step outside, and the change was immediate. Streets that usually bustled with morning noise felt muted, wrapped in a deep, brittle quiet. Buses ran late, if they ran at all, and journeys were planned with caution rather than haste. Shops opened slowly, doors sticking, windows clouded, familiar faces arriving wrapped tight and smiling through the cold. The weather dictated the pace of everything. Schoolyards emptied, errands were postponed, and whole neighborhoods moved to a slower rhythm. Footsteps sounded louder, conversations shorter, breaths visible in the air. Even city centers felt smaller, as if the cold had drawn people inward. Today, winter rarely interrupts our schedules. We expect life to carry on regardless. Back then, a hard freeze reshaped the day without apology. Time itself seemed to slow, teaching patience and adaptability. That shared stillness, felt from village lanes to city streets, reminded everyone how closely daily life was tied to the elements, and how quickly routines could bend under nature's quiet. Persistent pressure during those unforgettable winters we all remember. Those winters did more than test patience. They rewrote habits in ways we rarely notice today. Repeated freezes exposed what homes could not withstand and what streets struggled to support. Gradually, expectations shifted. New houses were planned with warmth in mind. Pipes were better protected, and councils learned that winter could no longer be treated as a short inconvenience. Families, too, became quietly prepared. Extra blankets were kept ready, routines adjusted earlier, and weather forecasts listened to with new respect. These changes didn't arrive overnight, and they weren't announced with fanfare. They grew out of experience, memory, and a determination not to be caught out again. Today, we take insulated homes and reliable services for granted, rarely asking why they exist. Many of those comforts trace their roots back to relentless winters. It's easy to forget that modern convenience was shaped by discomfort, and that Britain learned some of its most lasting lessons quietly during those long testing years together. What people remember most isn't just the cold itself, but how it made everyone behave. Doors knocked a little more often, conversations lingered longer, and small acts of kindness felt larger against the frozen backdrop. Neighbors checked in, shared warmth where they could, and quietly noticed who hadn't been seen that day. There was resilience in those moments, a sense that getting through winter was something done together. The cold took comfort, ease, and certainty, but it also gave something back. It gave stories repeated for decades, habits passed down, and a pride in having managed. For many, those winters became markers in life, remembered not with bitterness, but with perspective. Today, comfort is constant, and connection can feel distant. Back then, hardship drew people closer, leaving memories that still warm conversations long after the frost finally melted away. Those shared experiences shaped identities and values that endured beyond winter. Looking back, it's hard not to wonder how Britain would respond now. We live surrounded by warmth, instant updates, and systems designed to smooth every inconvenience. Those earlier winters asked for patience, adaptability, and a willingness to slow down. Perhaps we're better equipped today, or perhaps less practiced. Either way, the memories remind us that resilience once came naturally, shaped by necessity. And in remembering that decade of ice, we're reminded how much strength quietly lives within ordinary life today.